2.3 activity 7. So this activity is actually not a very difficult one, but does require that students put something into the freezer overnight, come back the next day to finish it. So do keep in mind this will cover multiple days, but students will need a marker. Whatever group they're in, they should write their names on it because they're all going to go into the freezer. So one, do you have a freezer and the space and all that sort of stuff determines whether you can do this or not. If you don't have like a big freezer, but you have something small that you can make work, you can maybe do it as a class. Hey, this is what we're doing, have discussions and things like that. So kind of plan this as one part of the day, have your lesson, and then when you start the next lesson the next day, they'll be able to see it. So after they get their names on there, what you're going to want to do is get some of the modeling clay. There's a bunch of this stuff in all of your kits, so you should have plenty. If you run out, let me know, because I have plenty. But it doesn't matter what color you use, but you want just enough of that clay to kind of cover the bottom. And then for this, you can use a normal straw. I just so happen to have something that was thicker, so you guys can see what I was doing. But I'm gonna go ahead and flatten that out just a bit, and then we're gonna spread that out on the bottom of the cup. The idea of the clay being that you want something there at the bottom that's gonna hold your straw in place so that it doesn't move. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more since I got a thicker straw so that I have a good base for it to rest on. After you get your clay in, that's when you can add your water. Have a kind of set amount. Students will be marking on their straws where the water level is at. So I think there should be plenty good. You guys might be able to see, yep, you can see that. And then I'm just gonna drop my straw. Make sure that when students put the straw in, they're not covering the top, even though they are gonna have to push into the clay. But you want the water to come up the straw. So you're going to slowly lower it in until you hit the clay, and then as much as you can, try to push it in without shifting it too much. And so now you can kind of see the straw stays put and the water level is at the top. And then the next tricky part is you got to pour out all the water except for what's in the straw. So now students can just place their finger over the straw while they dump the rest of the water. Try not to move that straw, because if it, you don't want to move the clay too much, or else the water can seep out. And so that's what we're trying to avoid, is water being able to get out around that clay. Seems like I did a good job. I don't see the water level decreasing on my straw. And so you might have a few takes with students to get that done. But then it's pretty simple. We already have our name on there. This is gonna go, I'd probably have a tray. Everybody puts their things on the tray, it goes in the freezer, and then you go back to class, have your discussion, and then say we're gonna come back to this tomorrow. I'll put a top-down view right here, somewhere, probably here, so you guys can see what I'm saying, but the water level is there. But one thing I forgot to mention is take that Sharpie, and students should mark where it is on the cup without moving it too much. There, I've got my mark there, and then after the water freezes, it'll grow, and we mark that as well. When you come back the next day, I'm not gonna do the freezer thing, sorry. But when you come back the next day, students can mark how high the frozen water is, and then they can measure that difference, and boom, you can see how much the volume of water changed. I think it's around 10% if you run the actual calculations, because you know the whole iceberg thing, only 10% is showing. That's because the density changes 10%, I think, but we'll find out. All right, pretty simple lab, just takes a couple days, so plan around that and kind of organize how does that work with my students' classrooms, do I have a freezer, etc. But should be a good one. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.